There is a quiet truth about children who grow up ignored. They often become adults who struggle to believe they deserve attention at all. They walk into rooms and feel they must shrink. They enter relationships wondering if they are too much. They succeed at something, yet instead of celebrating, they brace themselves for that achievement to go unnoticed, because invisibility became their natural state. This isn't because they lack worth. It's because the foundation of their self-belief was built in silence. Psychologists call this an internalized neglect schema, a pattern in which the brain, over years of dismissal, learns to expect neglect, anticipate rejection, and assume that having needs is somehow a burden. A child ignored enough times eventually stops asking. They begin to believe that wanting love, affection, or understanding is wrong. Have you ever seen a child in a crowded room, tugging gently at a parent's sleeve, waiting for the smallest glance? Maybe you've noticed it on a playground, in a classroom, or even in your own home. The child who doesn't cry loudly, doesn't demand attention, but quietly retreats into themselves. On the surface, nothing dramatic appears to be happening, but inside that child's mind, something profound is unfolding. Because for a child, being ignored doesn't feel like a small inconvenience. It feels like a fracture at the core of their developing identity. Childhood neglect doesn't always look like cruelty. Sometimes it looks like absence, unanswered questions, lack of eye contact, a forgotten birthday, a parent too tired, too stressed, too distracted to notice. The psychology behind the ignored child runs deep. It shapes how they see themselves, how they see the world, and how they form relationships long into adulthood. We assume children are resilient. They do adapt, but adaptation is not the same as healing. A child who learns to live without acknowledgement adapts by shrinking, by hiding their needs, by believing they matter less. From a psychological perspective, acknowledgement is more than comfort, it's survival. Research shows children need 3 essential ingredients to thrive: safety, stimulation, and connection. And connection, the experience of being seen, heard, and valued, is what shapes a child's sense of identity. Attachment theory tells us that when a caregiver consistently responds to a child's needs, the child builds trust in the world. But when a child is ignored, even unintentionally, they form a darker belief. Maybe I don't deserve love. Maybe I'm not important. Neuroscience reveals that repeated emotional dismissal triggers stress responses in the child's body, flooding it with cortisol, rewiring the nervous system to expect rejection. From the outside, this may just look like a quiet kid. But the internal damage is real. Unlike physical neglect, emotional neglect leaves no visible scars, only silent ones. These wounds often appear much later, when the ignored child becomes an adult trying to build intimacy, pursue dreams, or find belonging. Many such adults struggle with self-worth, dismiss their own thoughts, fear rejection, or chase approval desperately. Some avoid relationships, others cling to them. Some become perfectionists, others give up entirely. Imagine a child coming home, excited with a drawing they made, but every attempt to share it goes unnoticed. Once or twice might not matter, but hundreds of times become a message: your joy isn't worth seeing. That child grows into an adult who struggles to celebrate anything. The ignored child becomes the adult who ignores themselves. Many parents who ignore their children don't do it intentionally. They are overwhelmed, exhausted, dealing with stress, or caught in their own emotional battles. But intention doesn't lessen the impact. The child feels the absence the same. Some ignored children cope by becoming independent too early. Some become overachievers. Some become peacekeepers. Others stop trying altogether. These adaptations may look like strengths, but underneath lies exhaustion, loneliness, or the quiet belief that their needs do not matter. Adults who grew up ignored rarely talk about it. There is no dramatic story, no visible wound, just silence. And that silence often follows them into therapy, where they say, "Nothing bad happened to me," not realizing that the absence of something essential is itself a trauma. Research shows emotional neglect increases the risk of anxiety, depression, and difficulty forming close relationships. It weakens the neural pathways connected to resilience, but acknowledgement, consistent, warm human connection, strengthens them. This doesn't mean ignored children are doomed. Many grow into deeply empathetic, intuitive adults precisely because they know what it feels like to be unseen. They develop powerful observational skills, reading the emotions of others with precision. But often, they tune in to everyone else while forgetting themselves. Their identity may feel blurry because no one reflected their feelings back to them as children. So they may seek validation, not out of vanity, but out of an old longing to finally feel real in someone's eyes. And yet, even in ignored children, there is always a quiet form of hope. They read, they reflect, they seek healing. They try to break the silence they were raised in. The brain is not fixed, it can rewire. Every time they speak up and are heard, a new neural pathway forms. Every boundary they set, every moment they allow themselves to feel, becomes a small revolution. Healing doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it looks like saying, "I feel hurt," instead of swallowing the pain. Sometimes it's telling a friend, "I need you." Sometimes it's whispering, "My feelings matter," even if no one ever told them that before. Parents who ignore their children are not always cruel. Often, they too were ignored. These cycles stretch across generations. So when an adult begins to heal from being an ignored child, they're breaking a chain that might have been repeating for decades. The ignored child who learns to listen to themselves becomes a parent who listens. The ignored child who learns to value their needs grows into an adult who teaches others that their needs matter too. Healing ripples outward. The ignored child often believes their existence doesn't leave a mark, but in truth, their story carries enormous power. The journey from being unseen to finally seeing yourself is one of the most courageous transformations a human being can make. And that healing begins with a single, quiet truth. What happened to you mattered, and you matter too. But beyond the personal journey, there is a larger, deeper message. The story of the ignored child reveals something essential about what every child truly needs: not extravagance, not perfection, not endless energy, just presence, just acknowledgement, just the small, everyday moments that tell a child, "I see you." Preventing a child from feeling ignored doesn't require grand gestures. It requires quiet consistency, the small emotional threads that create safety, warmth, and belonging. So how do we protect children from the invisible wound of emotional neglect? We start with simple, human acts. Practice micro moments of connection, a glance, a smile, a gentle touch. Respond to their bids for attention, even briefly. Put the phone down during moments that matter. Name their feelings so they don't feel alone in them. Create predictable rituals of check-ins. Notice the quiet children who hide their needs. Encourage their voice even when it's small. Support parents who are overwhelmed, because burnt-out caregivers unintentionally create emotional gaps. Model acknowledgement in your own relationships. And remember always, a child would rather receive imperfect attention than none at all. When society learns to truly notice its children, their emotions, their ideas, their small bids for connection, it begins to heal wounds that may be generations old. And for the ignored child who grows into an adult brave enough to rewrite their story, there is a beautiful truth waiting. Acknowledgement is powerful. Connection is transformative. And it is never too late to begin again.